So welcome back, it's JVceo. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, like and comment. Make sure you drop your opinions down in the comment section and give me suggestions for new videos, because I always take that on board, and this video is one of it. So I have had a load of people asking what my sort of viewing checklist is when I go to view properties. That's number one. Number two, I have come to the realization that you guys love the property content. So I thought, you know what, I'll give you a few more of those in the meantime. Bear in mind, the viewing with the 10 bedroom property is still ongoing. I've got that scheduled in for later on today, and I'll be heading over there shortly, getting those films and hopefully putting that out shortly in a few weeks as well. But anyways, today I'm going to take you through 15 step-by-step sort of points or things that I do when I go to view a property. This is more geared towards investment properties, not residential. Residential is slightly separate. But anyways, enjoy the video and let's hit you up with point number one. Point number one, this really isn't a checklist for that particular day. This is more in preparation for that particular day. Make sure you don't book just that one property. Never have any emotional attachment to an investment property. So my rule of thumb is I always book 10 to 15% below my target price. So let's say if my target price is 100,000, I would look at properties that are maybe 90,000 but also 85,000, and I would usually go up to 30% above what my target price is, because sometimes that's where the deals are made. It may be that I'm picking up that £85,000 house despite my target despite my target price of 100,000, but maybe that £85,000 is truly worth 100,000, but maybe the vendor just wants a quick sale. If you don't check these properties, you would never really know. But more importantly, when you're able to see different ends of the market, you start to understand a bit more, you know, the property that you're going into, and you start to understand the true value. So now you see an £85,000 house, you see a £100,000 house, but also you see maybe a £120,000 house or £130,000 house, and then later on when you're deciding, you have a much fuller picture. And alongside that, I would always say, always have a few day of viewings. Don't just go up there to see one property or two properties. It's very hard to make a well-informed decision. If you narrow down your selection pool, I would view at least, if I'm really serious about making a purchase, I'd usually view at least 6 properties and up, but at least a minimum of 6. But yeah, that's point number one. On to point number two. Arrive early and survey the area. This sounds very basic, but a lot of people do not do this. Check out the area, check out the shopping centres, check out the high streets, check out even the supermarkets closest to the property you're purchasing, because that would give you an indication of what the area is like. An example being, let's say if it has a Waitrose there, or let's say for example it has a Harvey Nichols perhaps in the locality of the area, or perhaps it has certain other things that you know you weren't aware of beforehand. It would give you a more fuller picture of what that area's makeup feels like, but more importantly as well, it would let you know where in the market that particular property sits. An example being, you know, if there was a Waitrose around there, then you may be free to assume that perhaps, you know, you'd expect to get some what would you call it, higher income tenants, maybe. But again, all of these is you take it with a pinch of salt, and it helps you work certain things out moving forward. It doesn't mean that that's the be and all, and that's all you have to do. And once you get a Waitrose next to you, then that means you're going to get, you know, very good paying tenants. That's not what it means, but it means that if you take a whole bunch of things along together, then you would start to get a better picture of the particular area. So take some time, check out the area, check out the local parks. Very important. On to point number three. Keep a tab. I actually write it down, all the properties that I view. Keep a tab of how close it is to the transport links, that being the train stations. That makes a huge difference, especially if you're not in a major city, but maybe that's the outskirts of a major city, because then people would always gravitate towards that area because it's cheaper and they could get into the major city a lot easier. There are areas like this in Newcastle where people wouldn't live in Newcastle. They'll live just outside of Newcastle in the County Durham area, and then they can commute into Newcastle a lot easier. So check out, you know, distance to the train station, 0.3 miles, maybe 7 miles. You know, you ask yourself, would you live there? You know, if you were working in that near city, in that next major city, would you live 7, 8 miles away from the train station or not? These are things you want to check out. Additionally, check out what the transport, local transport links looks like. That being the bus services that are servicing the area. How long does it take to come out? Does it take 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 10, or maybe an hour? You know, these are things that you really want to get your head around, because then it will give you an indication of the sort of tenant you should be expecting, but maybe even if that's the right property and the right area to buy in. But anyways, on to point number 4. This is a very disputed point. People always say, oh, estate agents are liars. Estate agents will never tell you something. That's definitely wrong, and you wouldn't know that until you've viewed a lot of properties. Estate agents could actually be your best friends. They could get you the best deals on the market, but more importantly, they can show you things about the local areas that you're not aware of and you'd never be aware of. With that being said, there are some estate agents that are in fact useless, but that's like everything. There are humans that are useless and there are humans that aren't. Anyways, with that being said, when you're on your viewings, make sure you ask all the questions to that local estate agent. I'll give you an example. I was in a particular area in Middlesbrough, and actually not Middlesbrough, it was Hartlepool, I think, and I was viewing a property. I knew exactly what the property potential was, but I wasn't entirely sure, and the agent was able to tell me that in that particular area of Hartlepool, it was a declining area. Maybe I needed to go around 3 miles away from that. You know, that helps me massively, because I wouldn't have known that. I'd done all my research and there was no indication that it was a declining market. I knew it was a stagnated market, but I did not know it was a declining market. So that's where the estate agents come into play. Ask them every single question. You know, don't be shy. You know, they see a lot of people. You know, they're not going to judge you. Ask them all the questions that you may have, and you'll be shocked the sorts of relationship that you would strike off the back of that. Which leads me on to point number 5. Right, more interesting point. Now you're in the property, you're thinking, this is what I've come to this video for. You're in the property, what are you going to do? What are you going to look out for? Before I even tell you to look out for anything, number 1, take a load of pictures and videos. For 2 reasons. Firstly, it helps you with your with the deciding factor. So later on, when you're putting all those properties on a line and you're measuring them against each other, you have a reference point rather than what's available online on Rightmove or Zoopla. You have a reference point in your phone, detailed pictures, close-ups of certain things, videos, that sort of stuff. That's what you want to do. That's the first reason why you do that. It helps with the selection criterias. The second reason why you should take pictures, right? A lot of people don't know this. Before you close the property, make sure you visit a property again, because a lot of things can change and would end up costing you a lot of money if you don't actually check that. The pictures becomes a guideline, almost like a reference point. Let me give you an example. Let's say you view the property, it was in great condition, the floorings are great, and now 2 days before you're meant to close, you think, you know what, let me visit the property to make sure that it's in the same condition as it was when I made the offer. And you've gone to the property and you've realized that there's a huge mark on the floor, because maybe the vendor removing the items, maybe dragging a fridge across the floor or a sofa across the floor, has given it a huge mark. And now you either have to, you know, try and repair that floor or maybe even change your entire flooring. Then, you know, if you don't have the pictures to go by, you wouldn't be able to, you know, make an informed decision, which may include revising your offer on that property. Or it may be that the boiler is broken, is stolen now, that you've actually gone back to the property. Again, these are things that if you didn't have a picture beforehand, you're not going to know what was there and what wasn't there in the first place. So that's point number 5. Now moving on to point number 6. You will be shocked how important this is. This is one of my favorite ones. Knock on the doors if you have to, but make sure you do not leave the area without speaking to neighbors. I would say this becomes more prevalent if you're very, very interested in that property. If you're not overly interested in that property, then it's probably pointless. But if that's one of the properties you're trying to narrow down to, make sure you speak to the neighbors. The neighbors will tell you certain things, even things that you may think is irrelevant, but it's extremely relevant. An example being, oh, a rapist used to live there, and or, oh, you know what? The last 4 people to have lived in that property all ended up dying in the house. These are things that are very important as superficial and as ignorant as it may sound, believe it or not, that could affect the local market when it comes to putting that property back in the market. So let's say if you put that property up for rent, it's a very small community. Maybe people are not going to take that house. Maybe that's why the house has been on the market for such a long time and haven't sold. So maybe you have an option of actually getting it for a lot cheaper than what the market rate is, and then potentially just ripping it out, you know, gutting the property out, totally changing it and putting it back in the market, so that way, you know, it overrides all that negative connotations or negative feelings and negative experiences that are attached to the property. But more importantly, make sure you speak to the neighbors. The neighbors will tell you things about the properties that you should know. Oh, maybe you're on the wrong end of the street, because once you leave London, you realize that a lot of the areas you're going to go to up north actually changes street by street, and some places actually changes on the same street. So you might be on a long stretch of road and one half of it is, you know, really a no-go zone. You don't really want to go down there, and the other half of it is the better half. So these are things that you wouldn't really know unless you ask and speak to the neighbors. But also from a polite standpoint, you know, if you are going to purchase this property, you definitely want to be in the good books with the neighbors. They would help protect the property. They would give you information if there's anything going wrong. And even when the property is tenanted, you know, they would be your eyes and ears, essentially speaking. So that leads me on to point number 7, I think. Look at the surrounding areas of the properties on the streets and maybe a couple streets next to you, but most likely, you know, the properties opposite. Look at their front garden. That will give you an indication of the type of people that live in the area. Are these people that look after their properties? Do they take pride in their properties or not? And that will give you an indication of what sort of tenants you will get, but also what the market ceiling is. Because generally speaking, the nicer the front of the property, the more you could assume that there's more of a community in that particular area, and maybe the property ceiling is, you know, of a pretty good standard or of a pretty good point. And with that being said, look out for the cars outside these properties as well. You know, not being materialistic, but the sorts of cars outside some of these properties would give you an indication of what you should be expecting in future. So that's point number 7 of my viewing checklist. Now let's go on to point number 8. Right, you're in the property now. What I want you to do is I want you to take your time, start looking. Firstly, check out the floorings, right? Check that the floorings are very even and it's not so squeaky, because these are things that you should take into consideration when making an offer, because it will cost you at a later date if, you know, you're looking to get the property up to a better standard. So that's number 1. Number 2, look at the walls. Start checking for signs of damp issues, and when you find them, assess how serious the damp is. Is it a basic case of damp, or is it a very severe case of damp? Because again, this will give you an indication of what the rest of the house looks like. More importantly as well, start looking for cracks through the walls, and be very careful to look. There's some cracks that would have been covered by paintings or wallpapers and stuff like that. So start looking for cracks. Start feeling up certain parts of the house, because that would give you an indication as to whether there may be a structural issue in the house. Now in this section, you also want to go out to the back garden, go all the way to the end of the back garden and look. Try and get a clear view of the roof. That will give you an indication of whether there's slabs missing on the roof. Roof jobs can be expensive, and even more expensive when there's asbestos involved in the roof, because then, you know, that would cost you a lot of money to try and actually rectify. Go out to the front and do exactly the same thing. Have a look through and see how far up the roof you could see. You know, are there any real signs up there? Because if there are, then maybe you want to consider potentially making the right offer to reflect that the roof is not in a great condition, because the roof is one of the things that would cost you a lot of money. Moving on from that, back in the house, you want to start checking things like the windows. Are the windows double glazed? Are they broken? But more importantly, do not take the excuse that, oh, we do not have the keys. If they do not have the keys, do not make an offer until you get a second viewing of that property. Check all the windows to make sure that they're in good working condition. What you don't want to do is go to the property, you see the double glazed windows, and you think, great, they're double glazed, not a problem. And then when you purchase the property, only to realize that all the windows are actually hanging off the ledge, and that will cost you a lot of money to fix. So these are things you want to do. Now, moving on to point number 9. Boiler. These are things that would cost you, yet again, a lot of money. A boiler job can cost you upwards of £2,000. So check how old the boiler is. Ask the agents how old the boiler is. But whilst you're doing this, make sure you check the gas supply. Just check, for example, let's say if it's a pay-as-you-go, check that it's not in a minus. I know people that have bought a property only to realize that the gas meter was in a £200 minus or a £90 minus. That's money that has to come out of their pocket now. So check that. Check the electricity, check, just the wiring through the house, what you can see, check the sockets, just to make sure that it's in a good condition. The electric motherboard, just to make sure that it's in a good condition. And like I said, most importantly, find out the age of the boiler. As a rule of thumb, the older the boiler, the more issues you are going to have in future. So maybe you want to take that into consideration before making your offer. Is the property already tenanted? This could potentially cause you problems in future, or even problems with obtaining a mortgage. So these are things that you want to take into consideration at your earliest opportunity. But more importantly, if they are tenanted, then you want to know what sort of agreement that they have, how long is left on the tenancy. These are things that are important. Obviously, if you are looking to just rent the property off immediately and you're not looking to do any work, then maybe it's beneficial to you if they are if the property is already tenanted. But how about, I'll give you an example. I know of a client, well, not a client, I know of an associate that he's trying to sell his property at the moment simply because he had issues with the tenant. The property is only worth around 50,000. He has major issues with the tenants and he's trying to sell it. So now if you came along and you thought, great deal, let's say he had it up for 40,000 and you bought the property, now that becomes your headache. Going through like section 21s and so on and so forth is time consuming, and if you don't know what you're doing, and if the tenant is a very smart tenant, they could keep extending the process, and it will cost you a lot of money. So that's why it's important to see if the tenant is if the property is tenanted and what sort of agreement they already have in place. That leads me up to point number 12. Check out the doors, check out the light fixtures. You say check out the doors. Why? Let's say, for example, if there's a major issue with getting into the property in terms of the entrance door. Entrance doors are quite costly. Including labour and fixing it, you're looking at potentially upwards of £700. So these are things that you want to check out. Things that are, generally speaking, things that are going to cost you a lot of money is what you want to look out for. And obviously the light fixtures as well, because then these are things that would indicate as to whether the property had been managed really well in the past, or whether, it's just been a dump site, that sort of stuff. And within this section as well, I totally forgot to mention, but see what clutter is in the property, and later on, before closing, have some sort of an agreement in terms of what the vendor is leaving in the property and what they're taking out of the property. Because what you don't want to do is buy a property that is a dump site and now you have to pay for a skip to come and remove everything. You don't really want to do that unless you obviously reflect that in the offer that you've made already. Point number 13. What are the parking options in the area? Any off-road parkings, garages? These are things, again, that will attract a particular type of tenant compared to, let's say, if there were no parking facilities or parking opportunities maybe outside the house and stuff like that. So those are things you want to check. And now we're on to point number 14. This is a very, very important one. Are there any conversions in the house? An example being, let's say the chimney breast has been removed. What has been converted in the house? The reason why I'm asking you to check this out is you need to make sure of the legalities of it. Has there been a loft attached to the property? Because if there has been and they've done it illegally and you purchased the property, that can cause you problems in future. Maybe you'd end up being a one fined and so on and so forth. So make sure you check that out. Have they extended out the back? Is it legal? These are things that you want to make sure of before actually committing to buying a property. And now on to the 15th and final point. Whilst you're walking through the property, you want to get your investor hat on, right? Remove all the cosmetic stuff. You want to get your investor hat on and start thinking, how can I add value to this property? Can I split these 2 bedrooms? Right, okay, can I bring this toilet somewhere else? And maybe, what can I do to add value to this property? Can I extend this property out the back? What's the ceiling in the area? But also, if I can't necessarily add value to the property, how much is this property going to cost me to actually bring it up to the market value? You know, start pricing things up. Okay, the flooring is quite squeaky in the front living room. Or you know what, this room needs to be stripped, the walls needs to be coated, and then needs to be repainted. How much is that going to cost me? These are things you want to start checking, because then you can price up in your head, even without coming up there with a builder. You can price it up in your head, and then you can reflect that when you make an offer. So there you go. Now you shouldn't be just able to view the property confidently, but you'd now be able to make the right offers on the property. Anyways, listen, I hope you've enjoyed the video. It was quite a lengthy one, but I think it's a quick fire video, and I think, you know, if you take it all in, you'd massively benefit from it. Anyways, if you are going for a viewing, just type it all up into your phone, all the points that I have made, type it into your phone and just print it all out and have it to hand, because that would help you massively. Make sure you don't forget anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you're one of my existing subscribers, then thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the video down below, and I look forward to sharing the 10-bedroom property with you guys in future. Have a good weekend.